Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. In this video we're going to take a look at the Grant and Gavin Hawk mud knife, and this is the auto version. And I'm actually really excited about this video because these are the types of knives that I really like to get in front of the camera and talk about, and they're pieces that are interesting, that are worthy of a conversation. So we're going to go through the specs, overall impressions, and details. Here's what the knife shipped with, pretty basic, just the card. These guys, Grant and Gavin Hawk, father and son dynamic duo, are out of Idaho, and just a little cloth baggy thing here. So anyhow, you know, a lot of times people say there's really not anything innovative going on in the knife industry, and I always point people to Grant and Gavin Hawk designs, such as this one. They have another design called the Orbit that's a fantastic little knife. Really enjoyed handling that one. It's on my bucket list. And then they have an automatic or out the front knife called the Deadlock that is, you know, the perfection of an OTF. So anyways, we'll stay focused on the mud for this video. And basically I've never actually met Grant, but Gavin, who I've met at the shows and such, I said, you know, anytime that you guys come out with a new knife or a new design, feel free to send it my way. I'd love to get it in front of the camera. So this one initially came in on a loan, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do a video, send it back. I don't need another knife. I have a lot of knives. And I was like, no, I should probably buy it. And then I was like, no, I don't need another knife. And then I was like, well, maybe I should buy it. So finally I had to really just sit myself down and be like, listen, you have a lot of frame lock flippers. This is something unique and interesting. You should probably buy it. And you know, after about 2 seconds, I really did agree with myself, and so I purchased this one. This one is now mine for that very reason. I have a ton of frame lock flippers. I love them. I'm going to get more, but this is just, it's something different. It's something unique. It's something fun to share not only with you guys on camera, but with people in person. So anyways, enough rambling. Let's get into it. So the mud knife here, claim to fame is a sealed bearing system, and then the use of the Hawk lock, which is a really cool lock, really intuitive, really easy to use. And they initially came out with this model in a manual version with a thumb stud, but the design was always really intended for the auto, because automatic knives, if something gets in the action or gets in the way of the you know, like the button lock here or the Hawk lock. Basically, an auto is more susceptible to failures in the system by something getting into the knife. A manual, you know, if something gets in there, you can just kind of force it open, you know, the way it was intended to. But autos, you know, more mechanical in theory, and so having a sealed system actually makes more sense on an automatic knife. So that's this knife's claim to fame. And again, designed in Idaho, manufactured by Millet Knives, also in Idaho, so this is completely USA-made knife. And it comes in 4 different combinations. This one is the Stonewash blade and pivot with the black G10. There's also Stonewash gray G10, black Cerakoted blade and pivot with black G10, and then a black Cerakoted blade and pivot with gray G10. So 4 different combos on the first run. All of the first runs were 100. The first 100 were all marked prototype. They are taking names or orders potentially for the second run, and there'll be more you know, customizing options on the second run, I assume, as far as, you know, blade finishes and overlays and so forth. But anyway, so those are the current ones. Let's get into the specs here. So weighs on my scale 4.36 ounces. Here we are next to the Para 2. Fairly close in size. The Kershaw Dividend, another size comparison. And then let's pull out the old Sebenza 21 large, so smaller than Sebenza, also an Idaho made knife. But weighs on my scale 4.36 ounces, blade length 3.25 inches, handle length 4.5 inches, total length about 7.75 inches. Let's take a look. Actually, I forgot to measure the thickness of the knife, which is kind of an important measurement since this is a little bit beefier. 0.648, although if we go with the widest portion, which is where the button is, 0.6 722, where the actuator for the hawk lock is. So yeah, it's it's kind of a beefier knife, flow through construction. The blade stock, I believe, was .156. Yeah, .156 on the blade stock, and then again against the Para 2, this is .145-ish. So now the Para 2 again comes down to .025 inches behind the edge. The mud here is done in a hollow grind instead of in a flat grind, but at the thickness behind the edge it's also .025. So behind the edge it's the same thickness as the Para 2, although you're going with a hollow grind versus a full flat, and then a little bit thicker blade stock. I sliced through a couple boxes. I didn't have any problems. I didn't find any hot spots, really cranking it in my hand. So as far as the hand fit, I wear an extra large glove, so I can get a full comfortable grip on this thing without any problems. So yeah. Alright, so that should be it for kind of the basic specs. Now, as far as some of the materials go, the blade steel is 20 CV, again 204P and M390 analogous steel, G10 overlays. The frame here is done in aluminum, and it's been Type 3 hard anodized, single pillar construction at the back. The washers in here that protect the bearing system are polyurethane, and it does incorporate bearings inside the pivot. Just one of a few knives out there, a few automatics that incorporate bearings. Another company is Guardian Tactical on their autos, and then I believe Microtech has done one automatic knife on bearings. So just one of a few, one of a handful essentially. And then again, it's actuated by the hawk lock here, which you just pull back to disengage and pull back to release. So I mean that's pretty much it for the build specs. Forgot to check if the pocket clip is steel or titanium. It's titanium. Deep carry, reversible pocket clip. Pretty sure it's reversible. Yeah, it's reversible. So anyway, so I mean, again, that's kind of what makes this knife really interesting. There is the the fully encased bearing system. So not only does it keep dirt and mud, the namesake essentially, out of this knife, but it also keeps the grease or the oil trapped inside of the bearing system here. So essentially, you don't really have to maintain the knife. I was talking to Gavin about it. I said, okay, so when should they send this in for service? And he said, basically, as long as you don't, take this thing for a dunk in the ocean and get a bunch of salt water up in here, then it should be fine. The cycle life of a side opening automatic is typically somewhere in the 10,000 range. Since this is a larger kind of bore pivot, then it's not as tightly wound as a smaller pivot. The cycle life should actually be over 10,000 for for the spring system here in this automatic. So essentially once the spring breaks, that's time to send it in for service. There's no need to disassemble. Obviously it has a proprietary pivot for that reason, and with the blade steel, it's shouldn't really need too much maintenance or sharpening. So if I were to describe this knife to someone, or the way that I did describe this knife, I said, if I was a wealthy man, this would be the knife that I would buy all of my non-knife friends. And the reason for that is, one, they can't really get junk in here as long as they don't take it swimming. Blade steel's premium. It's not going to need a lot of touch-ups. You don't have to stick your finger in the blade path to disengage the knife like you do on most frame locks, which some people aren't terribly comfortable with. So it's really got a lot going on for it, for kind of being like a do-it-all, a hard use, resistant to the elements type of knife. So again, I really like it for those reasons. I think it's super interesting. The fit and finish is exceptional. Millet killed it on this one. I guess let's kind of look at it in a little bit more detail, but yeah, perfect. I have no complaints. There are no flaws on this knife, so did a really, really good job. Stonewashed blade on this one. Hollow grind we've talked about. Got some interesting kind of mill lines here that, I don't know, kind of help to tie the blade into the, kind of create a faux plunge line that tie the blade to the handle a little bit better visually. Quite interesting. But the secondary bevel is perfect on both sides, razor sharp, hair shaving sharp. There's the markings, very subtle. Jimping up top is good, not sharp, nice and effective. And then it's kind of got a little bit of a dip here in the blade, so if you want to choke up a little bit, you've got a spot for your thumb. There's the pivot. I don't recall if the pivot is steel. Yeah, it's steel. I'm guessing it's probably heat treated as well. Then you have the rubber seal here around the hawk lock, and the polyurethane washers keeping everything in there. So the hawk logo is this talon, or this, yeah, a hawk talon there, which is very, very cool. Lanyard hole. Again, you guys can pretty much see everything here. So now this is not a knife that I would want to service, nor do I plan to. And again, I think we've kind of illustrated that you don't really need to with the way it's built in these materials. What are some of the interesting notes here? I think, one thing that's a little bit different between this auto version and the manual version, which came out a while ago, is that there's actually more spring tension on the hawk lock on this one, so you don't have a, an accidental opening or accidental discharge in the pocket. So more spring tension on the hawk lock. I've carried this one for several days. I've had it's not open in my pocket, and I really have no worries of it doing that either. So let's take a look at the action. Nice and solid, and it's actually, I mean, it's this thing is super stout. There's just no play at all, and I've had other autos over the years where you tighten the pivot down too much to where it's nice and solid, locked up. It just won't fire open reliably. But that's the benefit that the bearings give you, is you can get a nice tight kind of clamp down on the pivot without affecting the action. So again, certainly a nice feature, a nice compromise with the design. So bearings are made of 440C inside the pivot here. There are stainless steel washers that obviously protect the aluminum from the 440C bearings, and I think that's pretty much it. So you can already sign up for batch 2 of these auto ones. I think they're not coming until after Blade Show. I don't know if Gavin will have any of these at Blade Show. Maybe. He was at Blade Show last year. Yeah, he was at Blade Show last year, so he should be at Blade Show this year. They've got some other cool designs coming down the pipeline, but this is certainly one of the most interesting. Again, if you guys haven't seen the hawk lock flipper that they did with Serge Pachenko, the Orbit, definitely check that one out. That one's on my bucket list. And then, the deadlock out the front, that one's definitely on my bucket list. I've been kind of holding my breath for a production version, but I might have to just liquidate some stuff and pony up for a custom deadlock. So we will see. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to get it in front of you, tell you about some of the design elements, tell you why I think it's an interesting or compelling design, especially compared to a lot of what's out there these days. So, again, if you're looking for something innovative, Grant and Gavin Hawk is probably the first place that you should stop and look, if you feel like there's nothing new or nothing interesting. So, yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. Anything else? Nicely balanced. Yeah, just super compelling. So I definitely plan to keep this one long term. It's I just don't think I'll have anything else as interesting or as unique, or I mean even potentially as well made as this one for quite some time. So I mean, if anything does take this one's place down the line, it's probably just going to be something else from Grant and Gavin Hawk. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it interesting, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. You can follow me on Instagram also as EpicSnuggleBunny. And yeah, take care.